So this session is all about the do's and don'ts of digital transformation, and it's wonderful to have so many of you here for this session. So I would like to introduce now Michael Vadskard. He's former Senior VP Digital Development, Leader Digital Transformation from IKEA. Please give him a nice big round of applause.
Thank you. Hello, thank you for joining me after lunch. So my name is Michael. I used to work for this great company, and I'm a retailer of trade. So I started sweeping factory floors, upgraded to running newspaper rounds, and then finally arrived at sales clerk in a retail store, and I thought that was heaven. Then I worked my way up to become a store manager. I ran a few different units, and then in 2019 I got hired as global responsible for customer relations at IKEA. And at that time, there wasn't, the iPad just came out, and there wasn't that much digital going on. But then a few years later, they said, Michael, all this digital going on, could you please have a look at it? So either I was the most successful senior manager or the one with the least gray hair at that time. So I embarked on that. And I would be lying to say that it was very successful in the beginning, because when you do digital transformation, you fail and you fail and you fail and you fail. But for some reason, the company keep believing in me. So I probably spent the first 5 years failing with indoor navigation, failing with 3D printing, failing with all different kind of things. And then finally, I got a blockbuster success. And that is IKEA Place. So I hope you all heard about it, and I hope you all have it in your phone. It is the first application where you can try your IKEA furniture before you buy them. So it's augmented reality. It's very easy to use. Everybody with a capable phone or iPad can simply take it out of their pocket and point it, and then you'll place a real size item in front of you. Now the good news is it was so successful that I got invited to launch this for the world press together with Tim Cook. He became a personal fan of it and brought it on Good Morning America. So that was like 5 years of failure and then 1 year of success. And what worked is when you get allowed. Right? So I worked 20 years for IKEA, so they're kind of like, oh, just let this guy do it. And I finally got to do something that was off the record. It wasn't in the budget. It wasn't in the rounds of approval. It wasn't in all these different processes and meeting and structures and decision points that you normally have. I said to my CEO, I can do this, but I need autonomy, 100% to do it by myself. I'll put a team together. I had 3 months to build it. And we never built anything in augmented reality before at this scale. So I spent the first month hand-picking the right people. And then we spent 2 months building it, and then we launched it globally. And as an example of how agile we worked, and agile is that you have no clue what it's going to look like when you launch it. A lot of people, they say that I work agile, but they work flexible in a waterfall project. If you're really agile, you have no clue. And one of the examples of that is Visual Search that we launched. I heard about it at Christmas, and 1st of March we launched it globally. So now you can use the application also to point at any furniture, and it will find you the closest IKEA furniture sold in your area with your price. So that's really agile. And then we won a lot of awards. And I was like, yes, let's leave IKEA and start by myself, because now I felt good. So I did that a few weeks ago, and I have an incredible good network of technical, highly capable people. So you can go to the website and see what we offer if you're interested after this talk. So what do? We try to sit and look a little bit like what's going to happen in the future. So we didn't hire this guy, but we tried to look at, my best quote ever about the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. So if it's already here, it's not scary because it's already here and I can find it somewhere. The other one is that you can kind of look into what is certain and what is uncertain. And what is certain is good news for all of you and me, is that the world is becoming older and older. So my generation is going to be older than my parents' generation, so my kids are going to be older than me, etc., etc. And soon we're going to be maybe 200 years old. So that's good news. And what does that mean then for your business and for retail? And how do you sell and how do you do all those things? So that's one, you can call it macro trend we're looking at. Another one is that people are moving into the city. And in 1950, 2/3 of people lived on the countryside. In 2050, 2/3 of people are going to live in the cities. So obviously that has a massive impact on the cities. And it's like you can predict it. It's not 100% certain, but it's pretty damn close to 100% certain when we talk about future development. So this is pretty certain. And it's a linear development. Then there's a mega trend locally that has sustainability in it. And you also see in these trends, you see counter trends. And I don't have to mention where in the world the counter trend comes from at the moment with sustainable future. But luckily, if you speak to young people, they don't want to look you in the eyes if you're not sustainable. So once we are all gone and the young take over, they will definitely put this back on the map. Then there's the last one, and that's the digital. And what happens in digital is something magic, and it's something very different that happens in all the other trends. And it's when we talk about the exponential development. So what happens in digital is it comes to a cross point. Now, I have predicted things years ago. I predicted 3D printing, and it did not come true. But I also predicted some other things that did come true. And what happens is you come to a cross point where it takes off on the exponential curve. And as humans, we have a hard time understanding it. And my best example is if I take 30 linear steps, I'm going to end up right in the middle of the audience here. Now, if I take 30 exponential steps, which is what happens in technology, Moore's law is the best example, doubling every 18 months for decades. Now, what happens if I take 30 exponential steps towards Rome? Does anybody dare to guess where I would end up? No one? 26 times around the world. So that's the power of exponential. And what happens is that we think it's linear because that's what our brain understands. And then all of a sudden it's this exponential growth. And it just takes everybody with a storm. And the music industry is the best example of that. They were expecting linear development, didn't come, exponential, bam. Everything changed overnight. So there are a few technologies that have that kind of like dimensions to it, and it's getting very, very close. So I'm going to excite you and I'm going to scare you a little bit. So I have the 5 disruptors that I believe in the next decade is going to change who makes money, how do you make money, how do you live, and how does society function. So it's pretty big statements, but that's really what's going to happen with these technologies because they are just on the edge of the exponential development. And if you think about the 30 steps, going 26 times around the world, the last 3 steps takes you like 95% of the journey. So if you are at step 27 with some of these technologies, you have no clue what's going to hit you. So the first one, not because it's the most important, but because I want to get rid of it, is virtual reality. And virtual reality has some incredible use cases. And if anybody of you have tried the HTC Vive, it blows your mind. It has laser points, it doesn't give you nausea, and you can go somewhere else. But you're not in this world, you're in a virtual world. So it's not very comfortable to use right here, because you feel like you don't know what's going on in the real world around you. But when it comes to mental health, when it comes to going places and seeing things, even buying a kitchen, virtual reality is like complicated purchase things, could be really, really valuable. And this is maturing at a very rapid stage. Now, the next one is obviously augmented reality. Now, you all have a phone in your pocket, and you're all super excited about it, and I hope that within 10 years, nobody has a phone because you don't need it. Right now, in order to do augmented reality, you have to augment reality, so you need to have a device. So you can either use your phone, you can put on some funny glasses, makes you look very weird. Sometimes you have to calibrate the glasses. It doesn't really work. It's not really almost there. So what will happen is that we're going to have it in our contact lenses. And then we're all going to be superhumans. And we're not going to care if it's a picture hanging on the wall, if it's just something that I see, because I see it. So who cares if it's virtual or if it's real? Like at a certain point of time, we wouldn't care about it. So augmented reality within the next 10 years is probably this is my favorite, my number one. And this is something that's going to change the whole game once again. And you can think about all kind of applications, from retail to a doctor who can see all get all the information about all the medical history in the world instantaneously in front of him when he looks at a sick patient, etc., etc., etc. So this is going to be a game changer. And then we have the third one is mobility. Now the good news is you don't have to take your kids to soccer every Saturday in a few years, because you just ship them in an automated vehicle. So the whole thing about mobility is not just self-driving cars, but it's about the function you do when you move. So you're going to have a much better life quality, because instead of sitting and driving, you're going to be having a meeting, or going to the hairdresser, or having a psychology session with your shrink. So those things will also happen, and also in a very rapid state of it, just before all of it happens, right? The fourth one, I want to scare you a little bit, because I think this is a pretty creepy picture. Now, if you think about exponential growth and the 27 steps, and you think about how computers can think, how they can simulate human beings, how they can become empathical, how they can become super intelligent, how they can become really, really nice, how they can improve your life, and how they can become an autonomous killing machine, and how they can do all those things. This is a pretty scary thing. And I'm not just talking about artificial intelligence making your supply chain better. I'm talking about artificial intelligence running a country. I'm talking about artificial intelligence running a company. So you will have a board member very, very soon who's going to be artificial intelligence. And he might not look like this. He might sit in the Google Cloud. And he might not have a physical presence, but he will be there. The last one is robots. And here I'm also not talking about the robots that runs a distribution unit. I'm talking about robots that run a hospital. I'm talking about robots that you pull up and you have a drive-by surgery. And this may sound absolutely insane, and it might be, but these are the things, these 5 things, I believe within the next decade, because it's just like it's a few years, like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years away from those curve of exponential growth that's just going to blow our mind, and it's going to change everything. And we're not going to care, just like you don't care about you using the self-check-in when you're flying, right? But you might not. Maybe you're not the first one who did it, but now you don't care, and you're not going to care about if it's a robot or if it's a human being helping you, because they're going to be all nice and they're going to work harmoniously good together. And you're not going to care. You might even prefer a robot because you don't want to talk to those complicated human beings. And your kids, they're going to have a resource available to them that we could only dream about. Now, then the big question, if those are the 5 things that's going to hit us, what should you do about it? So if all these things are happening, and let's just say they happen in half the scale of my prediction, it's still going to happen in a big freaking way. I'll tell you that much. It will change the world. It will change how you live. It will change who makes money, and it will change things. So what should you do? And what should you do about all this digital technology that everybody's talking about all the time, and optimization? Now, my advice number 1 is to learn it. And it seems silly that not you, but I meet so many executive and marketing managers and sales. Oh, it's running. Marketing managers and sales executives and CEOs, and they're like, yeah, this is digital, that's somebody else. You're all in digital business. There's nobody in here that is not in digital business. So what do you do if you're all selling cars? And I come in and say, hey, the Honda on the parking lot, is that a diesel or gasoline? I have to talk to Paul in the garage about that. Oh, does it have a lot of horsepower? I'm not sure about the horsepower thing. I think it might have horsepower, but I can tell you, normally the red and the blue ones are the fastest. Like, that's literally the conversations a lot of people are having in the boardroom when it comes to digital. So learn it. Spend the weekend going on Code Academy. Try to build a website. Figure out, I'm just going to write a little text here and then something happens over here. It's not magic. None of it is magic. So it shouldn't be for business people either. So half of your time should actually be, like half of your knowledge should be there. And none of you would be in business if you didn't know your product. So I'll give you an example. For the augmented reality, what do you have to do? So I'll give you a 1-minute view into how uncomplicated something super complicated is. So the first thing is you do a structure. You define space, because you have to have something appear digitally, so you have to define it digitally. And everything is defined in triangles, because it has to be dimensions in space. So you make a lot of triangles, and basically, the really simple version is you take a picture, a JPEG file, and you wrap it around it. So you have a text file with dimension, and you have a picture you wrap around it, and then you can do a digital model. Now we can all see that she's not real down here, because there's something to do with the lighting, and the hair is a little bit weird, so we can instantly see that it's not real. Just like we can see that the papier-mâché is just papier-mâché. But it's the same thing. You build a structure and you put something on it. Now, if you were in the field of augmented reality, you should take it a step further and go into making something like this. Start looking at, okay, this is still a 3D model. Now, it looks much more real, but you can kind of see that something is not right. And it has to do with lighting and texture and the reflection in the eyes and how the light falls on the hair and all those things. But it's not magic, and it's not something weird. So all these digital things, spend a few days to learn it. That's number one. Now the second one is that luckily API have arrived. And if you don't know what API is, you probably do, but I'll just say it anyways in case there's one guy in here who don't know it. It's an application protocol interface. So it's the way computers talk to each other. Now legacy systems used to be a big problems. Everybody's like, oh my God, I have a legacy system. I don't know how to do my digital transformation. Everybody has legacy systems because everybody didn't start yesterday, so you have a legacy system. The good news is that you can lift your data out and put it in a modern way, in a modern NoSQL database, and you can access it really quick with efficient APIs, and you can fish out your information. Because what I did learn is that it's not the technology that stops us from stepping into something new. It's rather the work processes of how do you fill the data. And changing a work process in a big company is 10 times harder than just than the technology. Like the technology is there, the people are there to do it. It's very, very easy. It's the internal forces in big corporations that holds you back. And the third one is invest in it. And when I say invest in it, I don't mean to spend 50,000 on one system that's going to fix all your problems, because they don't exist. So when you do this modular API build of your digital applications, you can access that information everywhere. You want to have your sales prices available. You want to have a picture of it. You want to have dimensions of your product. You want to have that available in augmented reality. You want to have it available on the website. You want to have it available at the cashier, etc., etc., etc. But you don't have to buy a big, fat system that's just going to clog you down. So what you have is you have open source systems that are free available. And yes, it is free of charge. There's no charge to it. You get an Apache license, and it's yours, and you can use it for commercial use. And the best example is if you need a search engine, take Elasticsearch. It's free. Don't pay for it. It's free. Take it and make it your own. Now, in order to do that, you have to invest in it. So what I mean with invest in it is time and effort. Do you have somebody in charge of digital transformation? You all should have, because you all have to digital transform, if not today, tomorrow, or the next day. Do you have people that does it structurally? Some of it should be top down. The CEO might want to say, I want to go in this direction, I want to see this, this, and this. And there might be employees that has a lot of good ideas, and they never get hurt. So you have to create systems that allows you to do top down, bottom up, from left to right, from in the organization, from out the organization. And if you are wondering if you should do A or B, do both. I guarantee you, do both every single time. Always do both until one of them succeed. Then you can stop your effort on one of them. So, the top 5 things and 3 good advice. I think the digital future is yours. It's just a matter of, do you want to take charge of it, or do you want to sit on the sideline watching all the stuff happening? It's not very complicated to take charge. And if you need help, you can always contact us at valska.com. That's it. Thank you, guys.